My sister passed a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, in September, and I wasn't running the business at the time. But I mean, I took that poorly. I took it real poorly,
Mm.
combined with some other stuff. And I don't know what it would be like to run a business during one of those things,
Yeah.
one of those times. Could you refer to him as a rock? How did you get through that time period? Or do you have any, I don't know, because everybody goes through something like this in their life.
Yeah.
Share how you got through it. Let's keep it simple. How did you get through it? What made it possible?
Well, the two guys that I had lost the following year were what, and my wife were what held me through. On December 2nd, I think we got the call that Dad was going into the hospital and going on a ventilator because of COVID. When I got that call, I was in the middle of a 2-system maintenance for heating. At first, I said, okay, not a big deal. I can finish this. And I got through the first system and I was like, I don't care anything about this. This is not important right now.
Right.
But I didn't want to leave half a maintenance done and have to get somebody else to come finish it. So I went to the customer and I said, hey, I just got a phone call. My dad's, going to the hospital, and I'm going to finish your other system maintenance so that it's done and we can get you off the books. But if you don't mind, when I finish the maintenance, I'm just going to run because
Right.
My head's not in this right now. We literally left like within an hour and a half, I think, of when I finished that maintenance and drove up to Ohio. And then we spent quite literally the next 5 weeks in Ohio, completely unannounced or planned. My dad went into the hospital on the 2nd, and by the 16th, he had passed away. And for most of that time, I couldn't care less about what was happening with the business. Just perfectly honest. My wife would come to me and be like, what do you want to do with this? And I said, I don't care. Let it burn.
Yeah. My sister was COVID too. I went to the hospital to visit her. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was a misery, which I'm not going to explore any further from my end on this show because I don't think I want to do that tonight.
Yep.
To be honest with you, but I know what you're saying. You get to the point where even though it's your business, it's your baby, so to speak. You're in that situation, those parts of life where it's irrelevant what happens to it in that part of life.
Yep.
But it's almost like as you get older, you're better able to say, I don't care about this at all right now, but I know in the future I will.
Yeah.
So you have to get through it, even though at that point you don't see an outlet. So your wife got you through it. That's good. And when did you feel like? Because you said 5 weeks. Is that 5 weeks without any revenue, or there were guys back home still working on your end?
Well, that was in the middle of the flex shortage.
Oh yeah.
And they were running some service and maintenance stuff. And we had 2 duct jobs that we were supposed to get done during that time frame. And I found, and you might remember that the North Carolina Code Department said that we could use 4.2 flex for a period. So I grabbed a bunch of 4.2 flex from Ohio and we actually drove down for one night and dropped off a car full of flex. We didn't intend it to be one night, but we drove down one day, got down to North Carolina that evening, had dinner with my lead service tech installer / everything. Talked about the work. We were going to go in and start it the next day. And we got a call that my dad had turned to the worse. So we literally got up that morning, turned around, and went straight back to Ohio.
Yeah.
So at that point, we had dropped off the flex duct, and they were able to at least do this one job. But we actually ended up postponing one of the jobs, I think, if I'm remembering, not misremembering, because we simply couldn't get the sizes of flex that we needed in the quantities we needed at that point.
Right.
But it ended up being 5 weeks, mainly because Dad went in the hospital. He yo-yoed for several weeks. And then after he passed, I couldn't leave with my mom being in the situation she was.
Right.
So we ended up staying until January 8th when they had the funeral, because we couldn't do it. I mean, he passed on the 16th of December, coming up on Christmas and then New Year's. You don't have time for a funeral. So we just hung out and helped Mom deal with the trauma until after the New Year. And then once the viewing and funeral was over, we literally left the next day and came back.